"I'm leaving." That's all I said, not loud, not dramatic, just quiet enough to feel real, like truth whispered to an empty room. She didn't look up, she barely even blinked, kept scrolling on her phone like I'd told her I was going to grab milk. Then the corner of her mouth twitched, not sadness, not surprise, something worse. Mockery. "Sure you are." She said it with a little laugh, like it was a joke we'd shared before, like it was a punchline to a script I was too weak to rewrite. I watched her thumb flick across the glass, her face lit by the glow of something I hadn't been part of in months. Maybe longer. I didn't respond. I just stood there still, like my own silence was the only dignity left. She thought it was an act. It was. That night after she fell asleep with the TV still murmuring reruns and her robe half twisted on the couch, I packed. Quietly, precisely. One bag, essentials only. No keepsakes. No negotiation. I moved like someone evacuating a house that already burned, just collecting the pieces that hadn't turned to ash. The bedroom door was open. I didn't look back. She didn't stir. Not even when the latch clicked shut behind me. I used to think doors slammed when marriages ended. Turns out some endings echo softer. Down the stairwell into the car. Engine turned. I didn't hit the radio. In the rearview mirror, our balcony light stayed on. She probably wouldn't even notice I was gone until late morning. Maybe not even then. She'd assume I was at the gym or grabbing groceries or working late. She used to know my routines better than I did. Lately, she used that knowledge like armor, enough rhythm to keep suspicion low while she moved through her own rewritten script behind the scenes. It had been over a year since I'd felt her hand linger on mine. Her voice only softened for phone calls that ended when I entered the room. She mocked my consistency, my calm, as if stability was something to apologize for. If I got quiet, she called it emotional withdrawal. If I asked questions, it was paranoia. She knew exactly how much effort to put in, just enough to keep things from tipping, smile at dinners, ask about my meetings, initiate exactly once every 6 weeks like it was some internal compliance schedule. It wasn't love, it was maintenance. That night driving away, I didn't feel relief. I felt nothing. Nothing except the shape of something long dead finally collapsing under its own weight. She didn't think I'd do it. She thought I'd bluff, cool off, come back in the morning with coffee and a quieter version of the same pain, but the door had closed, and this time she didn't hear it. It was 2 weeks before anyone said anything out loud. The first 12 days I kept my phone on silent, slept in a short-term rental under a different name, logged out of our shared cloud. No social, no alerts. Just email, encrypted and only for work. I told no one, not yet. Even my closest friend assumed I was traveling. That part wasn't unusual. I'd always been the one who could vanish without much notice. My presence was quiet, my absence even quieter. Then came the message. From someone I barely knew. A woman named Kayla. She was a mutual of a mutual. We met twice, maybe 3 times, group settings, mostly birthdays and barbecues where people over-laughed to hide their boredom. Her message was plain, no greeting. Is it true she's involved with 2 people discreetly? That was it. No question mark, no emoji. Just a line that felt too straight not to have barbs hidden underneath. I didn't answer. Just stared at it for a long moment, then set the phone face down on the desk. But the silence had already cracked. That night I logged into an old burner account I'd used once to vet marketing contractors. She didn't know about it. She'd always assumed I kept everything in neat folders. She never understood how deep I buried the things I truly needed. The tags were easy to find once I knew what to look for. Her name wasn't on them. But there she was, half hidden in a group photo on a wine-soaked terrace, arms slung casually around someone she once swore she barely knew. The same someone she'd described to me in a tone laced with disinterest. Too young, too loud. Not my type, she'd said. His face had always irritated me. Now I understood why. There were more photos, none public, all tucked behind private accounts with usernames she hadn't used in years. One of them even linked to an old blog she used in college. I clicked, scrolled, froze. A second Instagram, not linked to her phone number, not under her real name, but her face in every frame. Styled, curated, and staged for a different version of herself. The captions were self-deprecating in a way she never was with me. Witty, flirtatious, hashtag heavy. She never posted us there. Not once. But she posted him. And another. A man in a suit, older, standing too close, hand at her waist in a way that didn't read accidental. They were at a conference. One I remembered because she came home quiet that week, exhausted, she'd said. Didn't want to talk. The second man wore a pin on his lapel I recognized instantly. He worked at a firm that had pitched against me last quarter, and the framework he'd used had mirrored mine with eerie precision. Same headers, same flow. Even the graphics had a signature style I'd never shared outside my circle. That night I didn't sleep, not from anger, from math. I retraced every pitch I'd lost over the past 6 months, pulled archives, decks, emails, timelines, and there it was, subtle shifts in her routine. The nights she stayed late, the questions she asked that felt too specific to be casual. She hadn't just misled me. She'd rerouted everything I'd built, passed it off in pieces, softly, slowly. And for what? A thrill with one, a leg up for another. I didn't send a message, didn't call, didn't scream. I started building a firewall. By morning, I'd restructured every digital access point I owned. No more shared accounts. No more synced calendars. I pulled admin rights on our home Wi-Fi router, then shut it down remotely. Canceled the streaming services I paid for, scrubbed my credentials from every device we'd ever used together. All from the desk in my rented apartment, half lit by gray dawn and old anger. It wasn't revenge, not yet. It was containment. I moved fast because I had to. She was sloppy with secrets but smart with access. If she thought she was losing ground, she'd make moves. She'd try to reframe it, shift blame, cry confusion. But the digital trail had already rotted at the core. All I had to do was scrape it. And I did. Every document she ever helped proofread, gone from the shared drive. Every collaborative folder, replaced with black screens and blank access errors. The password vault I once trusted her with changed, secured, partitioned. The holding company I registered 4 years ago under a discrete name, still there, untouched, entirely mine. She never knew it existed because I built it that way. It held the contracts, the intellectual property filings, the non-disclosures. It was the true foundation under everything I let the world see, and she'd never been invited in. She thought I was soft because I didn't shout, because I gave her space, because I let her spin stories until they tangled themselves into silence. But silence wasn't surrender, it was storage, and now I was loading the file. One document in particular stood out, the pitch deck from the last project she asked me to walk her through. She said she was curious about how I structured persuasive data. I'd laughed, flattered by her sudden interest. But now I recognized her phrasing, almost word for word, in the competitor's deck that beat mine out by a fraction of a percent. The same statistics, same analogies, the same transitional phrases I'd coined in a quiet room on a too-long flight. She'd handed it over, not by accident, not by ignorance, strategically, because it made her useful. He needed leverage in a pitch war. She gave it, and smiled. That night I met with my lawyer, not the firm we'd used for taxes and contracts. Someone separate, personal, trusted. I laid out the case, first the digital crossover, then the timing of access, and finally the direct evidence from her burner accounts. He didn't interrupt, just nodded, took notes, and asked 2 questions. Are you emotionally prepared to pursue this? And do you want to make it loud? I said nothing for a moment. Then finally, no, I want it quiet, surgical, total. He understood. We built the order that night. Separation papers, clean, precise, with protective clauses to lock her out of anything tied to my name. A protective legal motion, narrow in scope, tied to business interference, not physical presence. And a cease and desist, delivered under the holding company's letterhead, citing unauthorized distribution of proprietary frameworks. She'd never even seen the logo before. She never thought I was watching, but I had been. And now she'd feel the full weight of what it meant to be underestimated. It was a Tuesday, clear skies, mid-morning. She opened the door still in her robe, no makeup, hair up like she hadn't expected anyone before noon. That told me more than any confrontation ever could. She thought she still had time, still had narrative control, but it wasn't me at her door. It was someone in a blazer, calm, courteous. Handed her the envelope with polite finality. She didn't know him, but he knew her name. Inside, 3 documents, each bearing a different kind of silence. The separation agreement, uncontested, binding, quietly final. She'd never see it coming because I hadn't argued, I hadn't warned. She'd written me off as too passive to ever leave. The protective legal motion, professional scope only, crafted not to shame but to bar. She wouldn't be able to consult with anyone remotely tied to my field again, not without crossing a legal line I now controlled. And the cease and desist, clean, cold, and backed by language she'd need 3 lawyers to untangle. It didn't accuse, it instructed. Her first call came 12 minutes later, straight to voicemail. I watched her number flash once, then disappear. Then the texts began, 3 in a row. What is this? You're seriously doing this after everything? We can talk, you don't need to escalate like this. Each one more revealing than the last. She wasn't denying it. She was negotiating the damage. I didn't reply. By noon, she'd reached out to 2 mutual friends. One of them forwarded me the screenshot without comment. Her message had been short. He's completely overreacting. He thinks I took something that was his. Can you believe this? That word again. Paranoid. It used to sting. Now it read like a preloaded excuse she didn't realize had expired. By dusk, she posted a story to her main account, one of the old ones we used to curate together. A soft-lit quote against a black background. Sometimes people leave not because they're strong, but because they're scared. No caption. No tags. She wanted pity, wanted curiosity, but the views were lower than usual. No replies, no concerned messages from the orbit she used to control so precisely. The ground was shifting. By that weekend, her smaller account, the one she'd used to post the group trip photo, was gone, deleted, not deactivated, erased. Too late. I'd already archived everything. Dated, indexed, shared to legal storage. Screenshot logs, metadata backups, email trails. I had more than enough to demonstrate pattern, motive, access points, and digital overlap. Not for a trial, I wasn't pressing charges. This wasn't about spectacle. It was about erosion. Her leverage, once built on proximity and assumption, was now rotting beneath her. By the time she realized it, she was already standing in the fallout, and all I'd done was leave. It started with a brand partnership. One of those lifestyle companies that paid influencers to pose with candles and wear pastel sweaters near coffee tables. She wasn't paid much, but it was consistent. Every month they sent her a box, every quarter a check. Her name wasn't big enough to carry weight, but her face had a following until it stopped. No announcement, no statement, just silence. The box didn't come. The login portal returned an error. She emailed twice, then 3 times. No reply. 2 days later, her affiliate link redirected to a page not found. I didn't make that happen, but I didn't have to. The screenshots had circulated quietly but thoroughly. No caption, just proof. Her comments under a competitor's post paired with timestamps from the burner account. A line she'd sent to one of them privately, joking about squeezing out the last few perks before I caught on. They weren't leaked. They were delivered, anonymously, precisely, only to people who mattered. One of those people worked PR at the brand. Another ran a curated community she used to lean on when her engagement dipped. Book clubs, dinner parties, curated message boards where image was everything. Now her messages sat unread, not blocked, not answered, just ignored. Digital exile doesn't come loud, it comes slow. A missed tag, an unfollow, a thread she wasn't added to. Then suddenly, she's on the outside of a group she once treated like her private audience. She texted me again that weekend. Is this really what you want? No context, no punctuation, as if I'd been waiting for her to ask. I didn't answer, because the real answer wasn't about what I wanted. It was about what she'd already set in motion. She told one of them I was too quiet to ever respond strategically, that I'd leave eventually, that I'd never make it messy. She wasn't wrong. I didn't fight. I removed. And removal, it turns out, doesn't just mean walking away. It means extraction. I pulled every joint account, every co-signed service, every utility she thought would auto-renew under my name. Renter's insurance, shared ride credits, the grocery app she used weekly, all gone, all replaced with access denied or update required. It wasn't punishment, it was preservation. When we were married, I made stability look easy, too easy. She mistook that for softness, assumed the quiet was emptiness, but I wasn't empty, I was calculated. She started reaching out to mutuals carefully at first. A few awkward texts, a couple of voice notes where she tried to sound amused. "Yeah, things are weird right now. He's working through some stuff." Then the tone shifted. "He's gone cold, I don't know what he's doing. And finally, do you think he's trying to shut me out completely?" By the time that question reached me, the answer was already irrelevant. She hadn't been ruined. She'd just been removed from the system she used to orbit. And without that center of gravity, my consistency, my presence, my silence, her narrative had nowhere left to land. 2 weeks after the papers were served, she called my sister. I hadn't warned my family, not because I didn't trust them, but because I wanted to control the shape of the truth. I needed to know where every leak would come from, who'd be loyal to story over person, who'd try to play mediator. She called mid-morning, apparently casual, said she just wanted to check in. Asked if I was okay, said I'd been distant lately. My sister didn't bite. She texted me instead. "She's fishing. You want me to respond or cut her off?" I told her to wait, let the silence speak for me. That same day, I checked the logs on the old shared cloud, just curiosity. She tried to log in again, 3 times. Once from a new device, twice from the same IP she used at the apartment. The password had been changed 3 weeks prior. I hadn't left a breadcrumb. But she was still trying to find the trail. That night she posted a photo. Our dog, mine technically. I adopted him 2 years before we met. She claimed him publicly, made him a feature, the kind of pet people follow. She posted an old photo of the three of us smiling, fall colors, her head on my shoulder, and captioned it, "Funny how fast things change." Comments flooded in. Sympathy, confusion, a few passive-aggressive observations about deserving better, most from her side of the circle. She let them hang, didn't correct, didn't clarify. The implication was clean. I'd left, cold, abrupt, unfair. She was doing damage control by leaning on curated nostalgia, playing victim without ever stating the crime. But nostalgia only works when no one remembers the details. And the details were shifting. People talk, not all of them loyal to her. One sent me a screenshot from a private group chat. She made a comment, laughing emoji attached, about how she always knew he'd take the quiet route, no spine for confrontation. The same chat had fragments of a message she'd sent the second man, the competitor. She told him not to worry, said I'd never go legal, that I was too ethical to turn IP against anyone. He hadn't responded, not since the cease and desist landed on his desk. A week later, his firm withdrew from 2 proposals they were previously bidding on. And still, I didn't reach out. I didn't clarify, didn't warn her. I let her try to spin something that no longer had traction. She couldn't pivot fast enough. The algorithm shifted. Her next post barely cracked 100 likes. The next one after that, 37. Momentum matters online. Once it slows, it's hard to resuscitate. And momentum had been mine all along, not because I was louder, but because I was the axis she'd quietly built her performance around. My routine, my reputation, my consistency. Now that I'd removed it, she was still performing, but no one was watching. That's the thing about false normalcy. It only works when the other person still cares enough to play along. I found the duplicate deck in my archives, dated, time-stamped, password protected. She helped me with the formatting that night. Not because I asked, but because she offered, said she liked the clean lines and wanted to brush up on design tools. She sat beside me on the couch, feet curled under her, sipping from the mug I bought her in Denver. The same night she posted a quote online about feeling seen. She already knew who she was going to give the file to. Back then, I thought it was partnership. 2 minds building toward a shared outcome. Now I saw it differently. It was data extraction, and I'd made it easy. That week I sent my legal team the full thread of evidence, timestamps of access, email logs, cross-matches of language from her burner profile. The firm's internal deck had been redlined and matched against mine. Overlap wasn't coincidence, it was transmission. From me through her to him. She didn't just mislead me. She rerouted strategy from inside my own walls. I used to pride myself on having no enemies, being the one people could trust. I never burned bridges, never retaliated. People respected that. She exploited it, and for what? For access. For proximity to people who mistook borrowed brilliance for value. That morning her new apartment listing went live, not the one we lived in, the one she'd picked out 3 months earlier just to browse. She'd taken a tour, sent me pictures like it was a fantasy. Someday, she'd said, now it was real, fully furnished. Mid-century pieces, soft light, faux warmth. But it was under a leasing agency I knew well, because I owned 12% of the parent firm through Shell Investments. I made one call, didn't cancel the lease. That would be dramatic. I rerouted the leasing agreement through a holding entity, one that didn't permit long-term tenants with pending legal disputes tied to internal data breaches. No confrontation, no notice, just an update to the lease terms. 3 days later, I got a text. They're saying I need to resubmit my application. Why are you doing this? Still no accountability. Still assuming I'd flinch. I didn't answer because this wasn't about cruelty, it was about boundaries. The one she'd erased while I stood there still believing she was on my side. The fallout wasn't a spectacle, no broken glass, no screaming in lobbies, just policies, digital removals, vanished access points, friends who stopped responding, and her still posting quotes, still trying to see the narrative, still unaware that the silence wasn't passive. It was the full weight of consequence, measured, precise, and final. She once said I was too careful, too measured, that I didn't know how to make a point. But the thing about wireframes, they hold everything up quietly until you remove them. Then the whole thing collapses on its own. I watched her online presence like a stock in decline, steady drops, moments of attempted rebound followed by sharper crashes. It wasn't gloating, it was observation. Confirmation that removal doesn't require confrontation. It requires absence. Strategic, complete, irreversible absence. She used to post daily, curated mornings, outfits, half-thought philosophies wrapped in soft filters. Then came the silence, days without updates. Then a cryptic quote, people only come back when they feel your absence more than your presence. She was talking to a ghost. I wasn't coming back, and she knew it. The last man she'd been privately aligned with unfollowed her quietly, scrubbed their mutual tags, and posted a picture with someone new the same week. No trace of the conference photos. No acknowledgement I didn't have to out him. He removed himself. Self-preservation disguised as distance. Even the thrill seeker, the younger one, slipped out the back, deleted his comment history, unlinked his name from hers in every visible way. He didn't want the smoke that followed her now. No one did. She texted me again. We should talk, not about us, just about how this is playing out. It was the first time she hinted at consequences, but still not ownership. No apology, no truth. She wasn't sorry for what she did, only that it was no longer useful. I didn't reply. She stopped texting after that. Instead, she tried the last tool she had, narrative. She posted another quote, sometimes you outgrow people who were never meant to match your evolution. A reach. But no comments. No likes. Her followers were evaporating, a quiet hemorrhaging of relevance. That same day, one of my former colleagues forwarded a post she'd made 2 years earlier during a product launch. Back when she captioned it, "So proud of this man, his clarity keeps me grounded." The irony stung. Clarity was the very thing she'd learned to resent, because it couldn't be manipulated. It couldn't be stalled or gaslit. It cut through pretense. And now, stripped of distraction and leverage, she was left with the one thing she feared more than losing me. Irrelevance. Not rage, not vengeance, silence. People forget how loud silence becomes when it replaces someone who once moved through every corner of your world. No status update could mask it. No aesthetic apartment could hold it. No quote could explain it away. That's what I'd become to her, not a man, not a mistake, not even a warning, just a void. A presence subtracted so cleanly it made the air around her echo. She didn't lose me in a fight. She lost me in a closed door, and it never reopened. It took 90 days for the last joint asset to be stripped from her access. Not by force, by expiration. She'd assumed our shared digital storage, backups of her creative work, half-finished brand documents, personal archives, would remain untouched. She'd always seen them as hers in practice, though they were filed under my enterprise subscription. But after the legal filings were in motion, that subscription changed hands, quietly transferred to an entity in my name. The auto-renewal expired without her name on it. She didn't notice until she tried to log in for a rebrand she teased for weeks. Then nothing worked. Support ticket, delayed response. Account flagged. She reached out through a mutual contact. Tell him I just need my files, I won't touch anything else. I gave my answer through my attorney. She had 30 days after notice. She declined retrieval. I wasn't punishing her. I was finishing the extraction. When you dismantle a life built on performance, the final step isn't the blow, it's the unhooking. Quiet removals, clean closures. She'd used proximity to me to give herself credibility. Now she had to build her name without mine. Every account that once benefited from the association, consulting pages, testimonials, casual mentions of our partnership, now faced quiet inquiries, background checks, doubt. One organization reached out to confirm our past work together. I didn't respond. They pulled the reference on their own. Soon I stopped seeing her name on collaborative decks entirely. The calls stopped. The bookings evaporated. She began reposting motivational quotes with increasing frequency, each one a little more brittle, a little more desperate for traction. One post read, "You'll never be enough for someone who's never satisfied with themselves." Another days later, "Healing doesn't mean they were right, it just means you're done explaining." Still, no engagement. The algorithm treated her like spam, visible but unseen. A vacuum isn't just empty, it consumes. That's what she never understood. She thought I'd vanish. That I'd grieve in silence, maybe resurface with apologies or second guesses. But grief wasn't my ending. It was my origin. I was never the explosion. I was the reset. And the moment I withdrew, she stopped being the main character. Now she was just the echo in a chamber that no longer belonged to her. A month passed with no contact, no texts, no veiled posts, nothing in the inbox. The silence was too sudden to be accidental. I knew what that meant. She was recalibrating. It's the stage that comes after fallout but before reinvention. When someone used to orchestrating attention finally accepts they've lost the script, that they're no longer being watched. But I wasn't watching for her. I was watching the aftershocks. A message came through my attorney, curt, formal. She was requesting mediation, not reconciliation, just clarity. That was her word. Clarity, a safe word. A neutral mask for something more desperate. We declined, not because I wanted conflict, but because there was nothing left to clarify. Everything that mattered had been documented, addressed, executed. The only thing unresolved was her discomfort with the outcome. She had one final card left, her platform. She tried to play it carefully, no accusations, no direct names, just an open letter to the man who left quietly. She posted it on a Medium blog she'd abandoned years ago. The tone was polished, wounded but dignified. She painted herself as someone blindsided. She said she'd loved someone who preferred to vanish rather than communicate. Said she gave grace even when misunderstood. What she didn't say, anything true. She didn't mention the parallel accounts, the confidential data, the two men she positioned like footnotes to a larger story she refused to admit she'd authored. Still, the blog got traction for about 3 hours. Then came the comments, not from me, never from me, but from people who knew, who'd seen the photo tags, the IP crossover, the half-jokes she sent in private that were now living in permanent screenshot form. She deleted the post by sunset. Her silence returned by force, not choice. The next day she posted nothing. Then the day after that, the algorithm forgot her, and still I said nothing. Because at that point silence was not a tactic, it was the end of the play. She'd mistaken my withdrawal for weakness. Believed my restraint meant passivity, but the truth was simpler and colder. I had left, not because she'd broken something, but because she'd hollowed it out so thoroughly that there was nothing left to fix. No presence to rebuild, just echoes. And she heard them louder with every passing day. The apartment, ours, then mine, then just a place, was returned to the leasing office without ceremony. No photos, no farewell, just a set of keys left in a labeled envelope and an email to confirm final inspection. I didn't take anything unnecessary. The couch, the dishes, even the art prints we chose together, I left them, not out of kindness, out of disinterest. The place no longer held memory, only outline. And that was all she ever really wanted from me, structure she could decorate around. The final move was financial. I'd kept one last asset in limbo, an investment we'd once referenced as ours someday. A downtown loft space I'd purchased quietly, never listed in either of our names publicly. She used to talk about it like a promise, her design studio, our shared future, a creative space that would make her feel legitimate. She'd taken friends there once without asking while I was traveling, showed it off, claimed future rights. I'd already filed the transfer paperwork. Now legally it belonged to a company that no longer bore her last name anywhere in the paperwork. I received the notification of confirmation in a clean, impersonal email. Ownership restructure complete. Previous access revoked. The same day, she posted another quote. Closure is a choice you make when apologies never come. The subtext wasn't subtle. Neither was the silence that followed. The final mutual contact, an old friend who had tried more than once to stay neutral, messaged me privately that night. She's not doing well. She says you've made her invisible. I didn't reply because I hadn't made her anything. I just stopped reflecting her back to herself. That was the final dispossession, not of money, not of space, but of narrative. She debuilt her identity around being close to someone solid. When I left, the structure went with me, and with nothing left to echo off of, her voice fell flat. She hadn't just lost me. She'd lost what proximity to me made her appear to be. And in that vacuum, there was no one left to perform for.